figured that it is technically the meteorological start of fall, so I better get in the water before the summer's over. But this is as, you know, as far as I'm going when it comes to getting in the water here. Welcome aboard, my friends. We are streaming live in Durham region. This is episode 26 of Here and There. My name is Anwar Knight, your host. It is always a privilege to have your company here on a Friday of a long weekend, no less. We're going to have a lot of fun. You know, this actually feels kind of cool, like literally and figuratively, because it's compressing on my legs. And we had, I don't know if it was a boat or something that went, but all of a sudden the waves picked up, and I thought, this is what's going to happen with my gear, my equipment and stuff. It's all going to end up in the water, and the show is done. But, you know, here we are, streaming live lakeside, or at least the crew is lakeside. I am inside. And what they refer to is the town of Ajax by the lake. A beautiful, beautiful town, great story, great history. And we're going to tell you and take you on a bit of a tour here. This park is just beautiful. The water, by the way, it's actually warmer than normal. Right now it's around 24 degrees. Typically it's around 20 as we get into the first few days of September. Although, truth be told, if you go back in the history books, anywhere from 17, a bee wants to sting me, 17 to 26 degrees. So if you want to go for a dip this long weekend, I'll leave that up to you. This is as far as I'm going to go, but it is a little refreshing. I'm liking it. But isn't this just beautiful? I mean, you know, you could almost imagine that this is part of cottage country. If you wanted to make a day here and bring a picnic with the kids and just explore, really, really nice stuff. You know, it's interesting when you get along the water here. Now, there's a lot of algae. I hope I don't slip on this. But sometimes when I bring the kids down to the water, I look for sea glass. And that is really nature's way of helping us, you know, get rid of our waste. And not that we should be counting on Mother Nature to do that, because sea glass is essentially just discarded glass bottles and that sort of thing. It breaks down, and then eventually you may find it, you know, on the shores of beaches, and it almost looks like a gem. It's the polishing of the waves. I haven't had any luck today. I've been looking around because it's sort of one of the things we do with the kids. But I just wanted to give you an idea, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, of course. Let me grab one from down here, a little bigger one. You know, the action of the waves, it's quite spectacular on how it can transform a rock. You know, so look, it's almost like an egg here, right? And that's the same idea with sea glass, is that over time, and it's 7 to 10 years before you lose all the shiny bits on the glass, and then it just looks like a gem. It's all sort of, you know, got that brushed look, if you will, and that's just the turning of the waves of the water over time. So always neat and fun to explore, and this is certainly one of those spots. Now, we got a great show coming up for you, my friends. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the long weekend forecast, that's for sure, and there is some rain happening. Now, the good news is, I think overall it'll be a pretty fair way to close out the summer. And I know, you know, technically summer continues through for the next few weeks, but for this long weekend, traditional close of summer, there's going to be some dry time. Tomorrow will be beautiful, so we'll get into those details. Plus, we'll have another installment, and I hope you don't mind I'm disrobing here, although I have my pants on, so this isn't a pay-per-view, just so you know, okay? But we have another installment of the Nod to Nature, and I have to ask you, what do you think the fastest land animal is? Or I should say the animal in the world, the fastest animal in the world. If you're saying it belongs to the cat family, you'll be surprised that is incorrect. And I'll explain with our Nod to Nature statement, feature that is. We'll get into that. Another AKQ, the Anwar Knight Query. And this will be really fun, and it's going to be, to get us there, we want to talk about what day it is. Today is Friday, September the 3rd, which is officially World Skyscraper Day. And this is kind of cool. Before I get into that, I want to say hi to all of you who are joining us. Shauna, Morag, Janet says, keep your eyes up for the planes practicing for air shows. Some just flew over Port Hope. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I don't know, because the C&E isn't operating, so do you know something we don't, Janet? Maybe there will be an air show here. I'm not sure, but thank you for that. And Kathy says, looks so nice over there on the lake. Joanna's watching, Cheryl, MG, Master Mateo, Brenda, Brenda says, Miss Ajax and Whitby. Irene says hello. Shauna says the ostrich. Oh, I better say that. Don't guess in the comments if you know the answer. It's not the ostrich, but let's leave it until the end so everybody can sort of play along here, but I appreciate that. We say hello to Nancy, also Brenda, Christopher. Hey, Christopher, how are you? And, so Janice says there is an air show this weekend in Toronto. Well, doo-dah. That's awesome. So we will keep an eye for that. Hello to Ron and Morag, as well as Mary. And Ron Carter, by the way, is with the Mississauga Classic Car Club. So Ron, a big thank you to you and your team again for celebrating our 25th episode last week with some of the members of your club. We really had a lot of fun. Great response from the viewers. So that's what it's all about. So we appreciate it. It was really very kind of everybody to give us some of their valuable time on a Friday. So awesome stuff. Also, people joining us. Hermine says we're very close to her backyard. Welcome to Ajax. Well, thank you. You know, there's something about that. We get an official welcome. I appreciate that. Jeanette says, good to hear and see you again, Anwar. Well, I appreciate that. So let's get into, I'm going to bring this up. Let's get into World Skyscraper Day. This is really quite interesting, so I'm just going to climb up here. So we'll get away from the water. I feel refreshed though, I gotta tell you, especially the lower extremities, you know, where the water was on me. Hi, how are you? Good. See people taking their dog out for a walk, and that's always a treat as well. But World Skyscraper Day, it's celebrated on this day. It is the birth anniversary of Louis H. Sullivan. So he was known as the father of the modern skyscraper. He was an architect, right? And, you know, skyscrapers now, I mean, my goodness, you know, it is amazing. Where is the tallest one on the planet at the moment? Well, it is in Dubai, and it's called the Burj Khalifa. And this is over 828 meters. That's 2,700 feet. It's actually almost 300 meters taller than the CN Tower. So I wanted to show you some images here because it is quite spectacular. So you'll get a sense of it, and they put a lot of bling in it, if you will, because they have a lot of LED displays. So you'll see that on the video here. But it essentially is a vertical city, and it took over 22 million man-hours to make. The elevator moves about 10 meters per second. There are 160 floors. But get this, this part really floored me. You have this multi-billion dollar skyscraper, but it's not connected to the city's sewer system. We're actually going to go down this way. And so what happens, they use a convoy of trucks to pump out the sewage from the base, and then they take it to a waste treatment plant, which it floored me. And the reason behind it, apparently, is that the development went faster than the municipal, infrastructure. I don't know why they don't want to, connect it now, but to this day, there are a convoy of trucks 24 hours a day that pump out the sewage out of this building. But the window cleaners there that we were just watching, they have 36 window cleaners, and they will take 3.5 months to clean the building, and they clean the building 4 times a year. So it doesn't end. It doesn't end. Is that not something? But would you ever consider being a window cleaner? Would that be something you'd want to do? And that's where we get into the AKQ. What would be a job that you would like to try for one day? And it could be any job. And so you guys think about it. We have Vern and Ricardo and Richard here. For me, it would be a pilot, but at least one day. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't be solo because it'd be a one-way trip. I mean, we're going down. I wouldn't know what I was doing. But I would love to get inside of a cockpit and try to fly for a day. Guys, how about you?
Air traffic controller in that case.
You know what, Vern? I got to be honest. You let me know when that day comes, and I will make sure I'm not in the air if you're there. But that's interesting. One of the most stressful jobs on the planet. Ricardo?
A rock star, obviously.
A rock star? Well, you're halfway there, buddy. You're halfway there.
I know.
You want the groupies that come with that.
That's what I want.
Richard, how about you?
I want to be Brad Pitt for a day.
He wants to be Brad Pitt for a day. Well, okay. I'm sure he's thrilled. I'm sure he's thrilled. But that is the question we're asking. Brenda, by the way, Leering says, nope, hate heights. So certainly that's not on your agenda of jobs you want to do. Oh, Sharon is joining us from Jamaica. Hello, Sharon. I know last week you were mentioning a lot of rain, and I guess that was from Ida as it was cycling through. I hope everybody is safe and you're doing well. We do appreciate you joining us. And Catherine says, wow, great to see you at the CN Tower. And find out they are not connected to the municipal tower. Oh no, that's not the CN Tower. No, this is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. I can assure you, if you do 1 or number 2 at the CN Tower, it ends up at the municipal plant. Just to be clear, okay? Shauna says a NASCAR driver. That would be kind of cool, actually. Yeah, that would be a neat bit. I was very lucky. I was able. It was go-karts, but with James Hinchcliffe, we did some stuff. A little bit of a race. Again, it was in souped-up go-karts, but it was a lot of fun. Cheryl says that Haley mentions an Indy driver as well, which would be kind of cool. And Wendy says a bread baker, though I'm not good at it being awake in the middle of the night, so perhaps a 747 pilot. Wow, that's quite from baking, sourdough rolls to flying the big jumbo there. But that's okay. That's what it's all about. It's entirely up to you. So as we get up on top here, I'm going to just step out of the way, and Ricardo will show the Waterfront Trail as we stream live here in Durham. And we've seen quite a bunch of people already, cycling through here as well as walking their dogs. And it really is a beautiful section. In fact, some people say that this is the best section of the trail that hugs the lake. So Ricardo, just be careful you don't get hit by bikes as you get too close there. There's about 13 kilometers of waterfront trail here, and the park itself is about 150 acres. So this really does offer a stellar spot, to just go out and get some exercise, even if you're walking, you're cycling, whatever it is. Very picturesque, really, really beautiful. And there are not as many right now, but as we arrived, and Ricardo probably won't be able to capture them, but the dragonflies we've seen here. And, my kids, we call them drones. And to this day, my kids say, Daddy, more drones. And some of them are quite big. See, there's one right there. It'll be hard for Ricardo to capture it, but there were quite a few over our heads. And I should point out, if you are coming, Richard, you may be careful, there's bikes coming. If you are going to come down here, I should point out, if you're not a resident, not local, if you will, parking on the weekend is $20. So local members of the community, they can bypass it. They log in through the city and they'll get a permit. If you want to come though, it's $20 on the weekends, and that goes till mid-September. So just be forewarned. I think it would be worth it, but I'll leave that up to you. You may want to come during the week. But I wanted to focus on this for a minute here, because this is what's called the meadow. And it really is something. This is such a diverse ecosystem. Guys, let's move in a little bit here. And, meadows are so important to the overall health of a park ecosystem. And it's important to really identify when we talk what is a meadow. It's really just the fact that you have some grasses that are growing. There's no trees in here. And the long native grasses and some of the weed plants, the native plants here, they will actually minimize soil erosion and flooding, right? Because the roots go so deep. But there are a huge number of creatures that live here, and some that you would not find in any other habitats. So ecologically, it is very, very important because it offers a place for nesting, food gathering, of course, pollinating insects, and sometimes sheltering, with active weather. Looks like somebody made a little path. I'm going to go in here. But you can see here the grasses. Look how long this is here, right? And if you try to pull it out, I mean, it's really in there, so you can see how it works together to help with the soil here. And then, of course, you have lots of pollinators moving around. So this is really, for some, they'll say, well, it just looks like it's just overgrown, native, some would say weeds, but there's a vital role here. And it's something that we don't have enough of now, because we get into this urban sprawl where we just want to build, build, build. It is important to provide something like this when we start looking at municipal design plans of parkland. This is really, really crucial. And at any given time, you will find a lot of critters that would live in this spot. And it's fairly, this is a fairly large size here. So that's just another thing that you may want to come and explore, because it really is quite something, especially if you got kids when it comes to the pollinators. I'm a big fan of that. Look, there's another bumblebee. Wow, look at him do his thing. It's just amazing, you know, and sometimes you can actually see the pollen on the sides of the legs. There's another one right there. And, you know, they get a lot of accolades on the work that they do, but sometimes they also think, oh, they're going to sting us. You know, look how close we can get. They're not aggressive. I'm not going to touch him, but he just does his thing. It's fascinating, fascinating. And if you're a photographer, that's another, you know, another bonus. And there are a lot of bees going around here. So this is officially the Ajax meadow, if you will, at the Waterfront Park. Now, I should point out as well, down further west, you can just see some of the flags there. That is the Veterans Point Gardens, and I think we're going to go there at another time during another show. It is a beautiful, beautiful military garden, if you will, honoring you know, Canada's troops. Really well done, beautifully designed. So I'm eager to show you that, but another episode. Look, here's is that a dragonfly? I think it is. Oh, he's gonna. Can you capture the blue one right there? See him right here. Look at this. Look at the colors on him. Isn't that beautiful? The ant crawling on my leg is not, because he's biting me. But that's what I love, always discoveries, right? And that's what we're trying to do here on this show. So as we continue our little tour here, oh, Cynthia says, Anwar, you are awesome, which I knew you were. Walk down there with Mom every day, except today. Oh, that's unfortunate. Would have loved to have met you, Cynthia. Thank you for that. Rob is watching us. And then Ron pointed out, check yourself for ticks. That's a very good point. Ticks have been really bad, in particular for Ontario this summer. In fact, I've found numerous of them, even in our own backyard. So we always do a tick check all summer now with the kids. Before they go to bed. Very important. But thanks for pointing that out. You're absolutely right. I've got ants, but hopefully no ticks. Sarah's joining us. You know, if you've joined me for the last few years from CTV, you'll know that Sarah Vero was my partner in crime. We did a number of shows, you know, on the noon show, and then we did Night in the Morning. And she has a special day today. It's her birthday today. So happy birthday. Yay! So we say happy birthday. And I'm so glad you could take some time to join us today, Sarah. And I hope you have a wonderful birthday, long weekend. Good for you. I hope you're spoilless. She says, thanks for taking us along. Barb is joining us. Also, Donna May is joining us. Rick Jackson is joining us. So we appreciate everybody. And yes, Laura echoes about the ticks. So again, the AKQ today is, if there was a job that you could try for a day, what would it be? So let me know about that. Now, in the meantime, I want to sort of set the scene. We talked about the meadow and also the track here. We're going to take you to what some refer to as the Stonehenge of Durham. And just before we do that, we'll do the weather. But I just want to sort of set the scene of, you know, the history of this place here. So I'll walk out of the way and you can sort of see how much green space is here. But this is really interesting because, you know, Ajax was incorporated as a town in 1955, but long before that, there were several, you know, farmers and settlements that sort of evolved here. But it was really in 1941 when all the action began, and I mean that literally, because this was, you know, this region was a part of the largest shell filling plant. We're talking about military operations, you know. So it was the largest in the British Commonwealth. Well, that's kind of a cool, look at that skateboard. I think Richard could even go on that one.
Much exercise? Pardon? Much exercise? Oh, it's still exercise, don't worry.
It's still exercise.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of cool, eh?
With all the cameras.
Oh, we're just streaming live, actually. You're people are watching from around the world on Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
What's going on Facebook?
Well, and that's electric, it's battery?
Yeah.
And how long will that charge last, give or take?
I'd say I probably have about 80 kilometers still left on it.
Wow, well, that's pretty cool.
Like 80, so it has 100 kilometers range on it, but.
You see that? Well, just watch your speed. Because you might be knocking us old farts down on the pathway. Thank you, you too. Cheers. So you see everybody's sort of utilizing it. But back to this area, it was the largest shell filling plant in the British Commonwealth, and it was to provide supplies for the Allies for World War II. So, you know, this is all parkland now, but you know, back then the government acquired some 28,000 acres. And some would say there is still, yeah, we better get on this side in case some guys are flying down. They say that some families, you know, generations passed on, are still a little bitter about it. I was hearing that they paid, I think, $100 per acre at that time. But this was originally dubbed as Dilville. And the reason for it is that, of course, if you know about the military history, especially in this region, it was Defense Industries Limited, DIL. And they made huge munition factories here, and they employed thousands of people, including a lot of women. In fact, if you recall back in the day, I think it was about 10 years ago, remember the show Bomb Girls? It was a network hit show. Yeah. It was featuring the women that would be a part of this at this munition facility out in Durham region. So it's really quite significant to think, you know, thousands of people, close to 10,000 people employed here, and they made 40 million shells. I mean, that is really quite significant. And, you know, it became sort of the place to be because you had work. Now, that being said, it was out of necessity, but they had so many people now that were being employed here, and they would have their families here, so they needed a post office. And then at that point, they needed a nickname. They called it Dilville. But it was a contest on naming this town. What would it be? And it turned out it was someone in the Canadian military, and they named it after actually a ship. And that's what really makes it really kind of cool, after the HMS Ajax. Oh, be careful, Vern, behind you. So that was a ship that was involved in the British naval victory of World War II. So the town of Ajax was born. And I just think it's a really, really cool story. Now, before we get into what they call the Stonehenge of Durham, I want to get into the forecast. We'll start off by letting you know that the weather is brought to you by the Big Blue Marble Podcast. Listen along to undeniable stories of our changing planet and the amazing people trying to save it. You can access the podcast at www.bigbluemarble.earth or on your favorite podcast players. Okay, so very quickly before I take you up here to see the sculpture, Barb is saying, tuning in from Garden Hill. Oh, tell me where that is. That sounds, anybody know Garden Hill? I'd love to know that. And Shauna said Belleville is asking its residents to allow their lawns to grow a little longer than normal to help the pollinators. That's wonderful. You know, we hope to get out into eastern Ontario, in through the Belleville area, Cobourg, beautiful spots to see there. And Bob is watching. And also as we scroll on down here, oh, Wendy says happy birthday, as well as Laura to Sarah. And Susan Gibbons is joining us. John says happy birthday. Nancy is joining us. And Janet says a zookeeper for the AKQ. What job would you like to try? That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun, eh? I'd like that. I think, you know, Vern, your wife thinks that she already has that job with you, but that's okay. Kathy says an Olympian. Since it's just for a day, I'd prefer the day of the medal ceremonies. Well, you're thinking, good for you. I love that. Brenda says, my grandparents moved to Ajax in 1952, and the grandfather worked at the Dowdy, and grandma worked at Monarch Mills. See, there's always a connection, right? So that's what I love, you know, pulling back that curtain. And, oh, Laura says she just saw one of the air show jets overhead in Mississauga by Pearson. So they are, you know, doing some maneuvers and trying that. We'll definitely have to keep our eyes peeled for that. Sandy says, love your shows. I think you need your own show on a new network. Well, let's hope that happens, okay? Let's hope that happens. JP Wright says an old-fashioned telephone operator. Number, please. You know, I think it would be fun. You know, the irony is, how many people really even have a landline anymore? I mean, I know there are some that have it, but many, the younger generation, it's this, right? Like, isn't that something? And that's part of the problem, trying to memorize, you know, remember your phone numbers, because you hit your contact list, right? So it doesn't really happen. This is some great question and answer, though. I really love this. Brenda says, the ship visited a few years ago. My sister was on the welcoming committee. That's awesome. And they had a ceremony at the Veterans Point Gardens with some of that. Tammy says, one of the last Bomb Girls was recently featured on City TV. She celebrated her 100th birthday. I remember that. You're absolutely right. Wow. Okay, so let's continue our tour here because I want to take you in. Man, you guys are some great answers. I really appreciate all of this. My goodness. And by the way, Barb says Garden Hill is 10 minutes north of Port Hope, 45 minutes from Ajax. So I appreciate that. So you got to see this because there's another great story. And, you know, it's hard to appreciate it as we get up on the hill, but when you get into it, it's very cool. And there's a terrific story to this. So firstly, you know, as we walk into it, you can see it's almost Stonehenge-esque like, if you will, because there are sort of columns that are all situated in a certain fashion. So I'll let Ricardo push in, and then I'll show you some images from up above. But it's very cool. Again, if you have kids, you want to explore something, this is part of it. This is that bonus if you come here to the Ajax Waterfront Park. So look at this. Isn't this really neat? And as we get sort of at ground level, I'll ask Jason to pull up some of our images from the sky, and you can see what it looks like and get a full appreciation. It's very, very cool. So this commemorates the original site of the town water treatment plant. William A. Parrish water treatment plant sat on this spot. And, you know, Parrish laid the foundation, so there's some nice images for you, laid the foundation of the town of Ajax. He was a teacher here. He became a very significant community advocate, and then he became the third mayor of Ajax. And once he became the mayor, he really wanted to contribute to the community. So he enacted a plan to designate this space here, in fact, as a waterfront park for the community to enjoy. And he also established the very first publicly owned water filtration plant. So this sort of commemorates that. And the plant that was in place here operated for some time, almost 40 years. In fact, September 8th, 1960, when it officially opened, and then it was decommissioned in 1999. The new plant is actually just to the east of us here. But I just love the fact that we could, I hope my mic doesn't go, but you can go in between like this. And I just think it's really cool, you know, great for taking pictures. But Parrish, he lived to 94 years of age, and right until the end, you know, he really wanted to be a contributor to the community. So this is a part of his legacy, and he was known as the unofficial historian. So we bow our heads in thanks to William A. Parrish for the legacy that he was a part of in building this part of Durham region. Now, as we get set to wrap up, I want to show you the nod to nature. I asked you earlier, what do you think is the fastest animal in the world? Now, cheetah is a good guess, and we're going to show you some images. They are very fast without question. They're built for speed. We'll agree with you there because they have very long legs. They have actually a very big heart and lungs and large nostrils so they can take oxygen in. And they can reach speeds of 80 to 130 kilometers an hour. But the fastest is in fact an animal that you will find right here in southern Ontario. Think about that. The fastest animal in the world is, in fact, and I'll show you an image, a peregrine falcon. Does that not floor you? The speeds that a peregrine falcon have been clocked at, 389 kilometers an hour. Like, is that not just amazing? And we have about 4 different species of falcons that live here in southern Ontario. If you're lucky, you may see the odd one even close to, you know, in your neighborhood at some ravine space. And I know some would say, well, cheetahs are on land and the bird is in the air, but it's still part of the animal kingdom. And the fact remains that the fastest animal in the world remains actually a peregrine falcon. And I was just floored with that, and that's what the nod to nature is. Always inspiring us and inspiring me anyway, and I just love making those discoveries and sharing that with you. So now you got something this long weekend. You can have a bet, maybe around the campfire at the cottage, what's the fastest animal, and see what they come up with. Just as we get set to wrap up, we want to say thank you to Mine, who says love your show very much. Helen is watching. Nancy's joining us from Niagara Falls. Sandy as well. And Gail says Port Hope is a nice little town to visit. So please show me the parade of hearts, the thumbs up as we get set to wrap up here, because every time you send one of those icons up, it helps the show. It really supports the show. Like, love, share this post, and when we promote it, let other people know let's help one another. Let's share a smile, let's laugh and learn. Very difficult times. Sadly, it looks like the flu season in the fall is going to be quite active. So we need to come together, and I enjoy this, and I'm getting the vibe that you're enjoying this. Let's propel this motion forward, and everybody can get together each Friday and support one another, all right? And if you're watching the show on YouTube, again, if you could like and subscribe to the channel. We do the re-rack of the show on Mondays, and you can also watch it there. And I'm thinking we are going to try to explore actually going live on both platforms in the coming weeks. But I want to thank you for your time, thank you for your support. I wish you a wonderful, safe, and happy long weekend, and look forward to your company again next week. Where will I be? Woo! Here and there. See you later, everybody. Thank you. Woo!